I'm going to roll into it though. I'm going to get started. If people are late, they're late. Jump on in, and I'm good with that. So, what we're going to talk about today is, as you can tell, I'm sure from the invite, I'm the franchise guy, and many moons ago, I was the mortgage guy. So we're gonna talk about how I made that transition from mortgages into my own franchises and how I help people do that today, and why it could potentially be a great opportunity for somebody with that mortgage broker or banking experience to move into starting their own business. So, what we're going to hit on, we will talk about my story first. I think it's very relevant. We'll talk about why mortgage professionals, whether you're in operations or on the origination side, have potential to be very successful franchise owners. And we'll talk about starting a business. What does that look like more in general terms? We will compare, starting it with a franchise versus doing it on your own as well. And then probably spend most of the time on these next couple pieces, which is franchise operating models. In that space, we're going to get into, do you, do you go full time? Is this a clean break? And we'll talk about, why that might be happening in the industry. Or do you keep your job? There's investment models that we might want to look at. Then we'll talk about that process, finding the right one that's available in your neighborhood, in your community for you to get involved with, and of course talk about how I can help you as we wrap that up. So with that, let's keep moving. And again, anybody who's joining us late, I literally just got started trying to keep on time, and you really didn't miss anything yet. All right. Who is that franchise guy? Who am I? So if you really want to know, you can get, LinkedIn hashtag or / that franchise guy. Don't search for John Anderson. There's like 1,000 of us, maybe 10,000 of us on LinkedIn. So if you go on LinkedIn, hashtag, I said it again, / that franchise guy, you're going to find me. You will find I spent a lot of time in Southern California. I graduated from USC in 1989. Shortly thereafter, found mortgage banking as my first real career. I was a loan officer, pretty much start to finish. So maybe technical term, I was mortgage broker. And exciting. I mean, I did that business for 16 years, from 1990 through, we'll say 2006, 2007, when we moved back to Oklahoma. And that was my opportunity to get into franchising. So, and yes, I am in Oklahoma. I'm in Tulsa. You'll see my background is the lake house in Grand Lake. Any of you familiar with this part of the country, or maybe watch Bassmasters, you'll see Grand Lake often on there. How I left the business. So, I think not everybody has the opportunity to make the clean break I did. We actually got out before the financial meltdown, not because I was any Nostradamus or any kind of genius. It was really luck. We had triplets in 1998, and by the time they hit about 4 or 5 years old, my wife was ready to leave the industry and leave California. And it took us about 2 years to get everything situated. We had a couple houses there we had to get sold, and obviously wrap up our mortgage careers, which is why we're here today. And so in that opportunity, as we moved here, it was like, well, what comes next? And so for me, this was the opportunity to take, we had a little bit of money, not a ton, but we had some money from the house we sold in California. We bought a nice home here for a lot less money on us, obviously. So we had a little left over to play with, and that was what we used as a capital. We had an SBA loan behind it, and got involved in franchising. I found that the skills I developed really contributed to the success, to working with customers and clients, to working with the operations team, and managing all those pieces start to finish on getting loans completed. It just translates into so many different industries. Mine happened to be a family entertainment center, but it really translates into many industries. So, um, I do not want to say that everything was um, came up roses, as they say. We opened our business in 2007, and we had a good start. But if you remember what happened shortly thereafter with the financial meltdown, it affected the whole economy, and and our business wasn't great then. And oh, particularly the latter half of '08 through all of '09. Um, and But we made it. The real interesting piece is looking to build an empire. I chose to open a second location in Las Vegas. We were very familiar with Las Vegas, spent a lot of time there, and thought this was a very unique opportunity to take over one that was going to close. And we did that in the fall of 2008. So if you're very familiar at all with not just the national economy, but what happened particularly in Las Vegas over those next couple of years, at one point, I think we hit 10 or 11, maybe 12% unemployment in Clark County, Nevada, where our business was in Henderson. So very tough time to be there. We managed to keep open and get it sold, but that was not without struggles. And so business is not always easy, but neither was mortgages. From 1990 through 2006, when I was doing it full time, we had several times that there was hardly any commissions to be had. In 1993, I was in Orange County and the county filed bankruptcy. There was no transactions happening for close to 6 months. That was probably worse than any of the business challenges I've had. So it can happen. It can happen whether you're in mortgages, and as many of you have seen, I've got many friends still in the business over the last year and a half with what's happened with interest rates and business, drying up literally, has certainly been a struggle for a lot of them. So if this possibility resonates with you, I want to speak to that today. And basically that's it. I've been where you are now. I've been through those cycles. I've been through those times when rates were up and down, and I've been in the feast and I've been in the famine. And gosh, I remember going to seminars and having the presenters talk about, we all look up and say, "Oh Lord, just give me one more refi boom. I promise not to waste it." And so I don't know if that speaks to anybody, but I certainly remember that, and the cyclical nature of what interest rates does to income. So how I help you, I'm much like an executive recruiter. We'll talk more about that at the end. There's no fees for my help. I'd love to just jump on a call with anybody and get acquainted, spend 15 minutes, talk a little bit more about what I do and your goals and aspirations, and just see if there's a potential fit for us to work together and for me to help you. So that's who I am, and why perhaps my expertise is particularly relevant for somebody who's coming out of mortgage banking and considering a next career move as a business startup through franchising. So let's talk a little bit about why those skills I think are so relevant. So, you obviously have two very different personality types, from your originators or loan officers to your operations people, whether they're in underwriting or funding or your loan processing team. So, but both skill sets are very adaptable to being successful at starting a business. Pressure creates diamonds, right? Anybody who's in this industry, and I'm speaking about mortgages, has been through the pressure of month-end close, of builders and realtors, screaming at you because this deal's got to get done or it's all going to fall apart. They've already spent their commission and it's going to be your fault. And that's just one example. Obviously, as we head into the year end here, and 1031 exchanges and all those kind of things come into play. And if deals don't close by the end of the year, they do fall apart as well often. So that impacts both originators and the operations team as well. That pressure to get deals done. So in starting a business in particular, and then operating your business, it's not, like I said, it's not all roses. Sometimes you've got bad days. People quit and go work somewhere else. Heck, the toilet breaks, whatever. You got issues, customers complaining about something. Um, and you got to deal with them. And so that ability to go, wow, well, that's nothing compared to what it was to manage client relationships that are potentially going to fail if I don't get this deal done. So those that skill that you have to get comfortable with is huge. The other thing is the personal skills. So whether, again, you are the loan officers who tend to be a little more outgoing, and it's obviously a sales driven position, you have to be able to deal with people. You have to be, and those same skills come into play when you're dealing with customers, whether you're dealing with employees. From my experience, that being in that place where I had to work with my loan processing team, and I wasn't their only LO. There was multiples, right? So I've got to balance my needs against everybody else. I've got to push without being too pushy, and be able to build that relationship. On the operations side, you've got you've got to be able to communicate, whether you're talking to the loan officers or the underwriters, or you're dealing with appraisers or whoever. You've got to be able to communicate and talk to people. And that's all running a business is going to come down to: can you talk to people effectively? Can you lead people, particularly your employees? And are you comfortable in a setting where you might be talking to a $12 an hour employee on one hand, or a higher end manager or customer? Maybe your business revolves around having to sit in front of the CEO of a business. Can you talk to all those people and just be yourself, promote your business, manage your team? All of those things will, and most importantly, is next here. Can you follow a system? If you do get into researching franchising, you're going to hear that over and over and over. The two words, process and system, essentially used interchangeably, but it's franchises work because you're repeating a system and a process that worked in Los Angeles, it worked in New York, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Tulsa, where I am, wherever it's worked. Now you're repeating that same process over. Don't reinvent the wheel. Can you plug in and follow a process? This is where the operations people are really, really good, because you're given a process, underwriters in particular, given a process, you have to follow it. There is no recreating the wheel there. You've got to follow the agency guidelines. You got to follow your company's process for getting the loan start to finish. So now, can you do this? I'm going to tell 90% of you that I would talk to after 20 or 30 minutes, I can tell you if you can potentially do this or not. There are certain people, if you just are not comfortable getting out and being with people, managing people for any reason, that could present a problem, or it'd be very, very limited opportunities that we could pencil you into. But there really isn't many. I mean, I didn't come across in 16 years hardly anybody in mortgages that fit that, right? So I'm going to tell you, high likelihood anybody who's listening to this or watching this has the potential to be able to do this. It does take some confidence. There is a risk. Obviously, you're putting money into it. You're changing up your life. There's going to be a ramp up period where you may not have a lot of income coming in, and you got to get that business off the ground and growing. And it might be 12, 14 hours a day periodically in those first few months. But the light is at the end of the tunnel. And if you're successful with this, you then get in a position where you have your team built, your foundation built, and you can come and go as needed, because the business runs whether you're there or not. And that's the goal of every entrepreneur, right? And most people I talk to, they're looking for that control and that freedom way more than they're looking for some additional income. Of course, finances, wealth building are all great reasons to start a business, but ultimately having that control of your time is really a huge piece. So how I ultimately got over it, after several months of researching different brands and getting to the point where I even visited our home office in Phoenix of the brand that I ultimately joined and signed on with. Was I looked at the people who were already doing it. As part of this process, you get to talk to franchisees in the system who are already doing what you want to do. I looked at them, their backgrounds, talked to them, of course, their backgrounds, and what they did every day and how they were going about it. And I knew there was no way that if, and take this the right way, maybe it's my ego speaking a little bit here, but I looked at them and just thought, you know what, I'm as good as they are. If they can do this, I can do it, and I know I can be successful with it. And I coach people all the time on taking that same approach. So let's move on. I was hoping to keep this to under 30 minutes, so I need to move through this a little bit. So business mindset. So being successful in your own business really starts with the mindset of waking up every morning. I'm excited. I'm hitting the ground running, and I'm going to do whatever it takes today to advance my business. In the franchise world, they're going to help you build a business plan. You're going to plug into their model, and you're going to go out and execute. So you'll have some idea of what you need to do every day. Most franchises will have a coach you'll talk to on a weekly or monthly basis, and they're going to help you with action plans for that period of time. But to be successful, you cannot get to a place where you don't want to get out of bed every day. It's too much for you. You've got to have that mindset of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this done today. And there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, and you got to celebrate those wins too, especially in the beginning. But be prepared for some bumps in the road, because that's what otherwise everybody opened their own business, right? I mean, the financial aspects, the tax aspects, the freedom. I mean, everybody wants to own their business, but not everybody's cut out for it. So again, mortgage people, we talked about this in the last slide. Being able to manage that stress when you do hit those bumps in the road is huge. And I think that it helped me handling the pressure of getting deals done, managing the real estate relationships and the builder relationships. And of course, the clients who are planning movers and all those kind of things. You've got to be able to handle that stress in the mortgage side of things, and then it definitely translates into things that come up in running a business. And then the right operating model is going to help an awful lot. And what I mean by that is placing you in a business that sets you up for success is what I do. And I don't say place you in a single one. I introduce you to, half a dozen to a dozen, and together we work through them to identify one that resonates the most. But they all start with matching your skills and background profile, your finances, and your lifestyle goals to that business. Like, we look at who's successful running that business already. What do they look like? And we're going to match your profile to them and talk about businesses in that space. And we'll talk a lot more about this here as we go forward. But first, I'm going to hit on just a little bit, why franchise versus starting your own business. So for me, when I moved and was looking to do this, my own experience really was mortgages. I did try and do a couple businesses out in California when we were there, and a golf thing and a thing that was like a predecessor to Facebook that Steve, if you're watching this, I'm sure you're getting a chuckle, but that was kind of fun, but neither one of them really went anywhere. So got here, what do? I don't want to do mortgages again. And so I turned to franchising, and I started reaching out to franchises on the internet, franchises wherever I could find information. And to me, it just made a lot of sense that what I talked about a minute ago about this process, this business plan that you just plug into. And that's what I did. I just found the one that resonated and spoke to me, and I was confident we could do it. And I plugged into that business plan, and 17 years later, we're still in that business. We survived COVID. It's exciting to be able to do that and say that. So franchises are going to provide you that business in a box, that business plan. But more than that, they are going to give you the tools to be successful in the training. So all businesses require some sort of customer relationship management, CRM, your database. They're going to need a POS, point of sale system. You're going to need your payroll and your accounting and all that. So most of them, they may be different modules, but that technology all speaks together, and they set you up with that. Your marketing is, and how you get clients and customers is going to be done for you. Where do you find employees, and how do you find the right employees? That coaching is there. So and so you're getting the startup training, but you're also getting coaching going well beyond the day you open your doors. And the last thing I'll touch on there is the peer-to-peer network. So one of the most important and most valuable things to me about franchising was the relationships I had with a good friend in Sacramento, who, she and I went through, well, what we call Discovery Day at the same time. About 10 months later, went through our training together, and both opened. I think she and her husband opened maybe a month or two before my wife and I opened our Bounce U location. So we then spoke, I don't know, once a month, a couple times a month, about issues and problems and challenges. I had friends in North Carolina, Atlanta. I can't, I mean, that's just a few off the top of my head, even there in Phoenix at the home office. So um, lots of that peer-to-peer support, people doing the same thing you're doing every day, but you're not competition. And the ideas flow, and the support flows very freely. So. All right, let's talk a little bit about the operating models piece, because that is equally as important. When you start looking at, I want to do this, John, but I just don't know how. Well, first thing, get on my calendar, call me, whatever. We'll talk about how you can get a hold of me at the end. There's a calendar link right here in the bottom right-hand corner. My LinkedIn page, my website. There's not hard to get a hold of me. So first thing, do that. But when you say, John, let's say we do get on that call, I want to do something. It's been a lifelong dream, but I don't know how to. I mean, I've got to pay my bills. We've got some strategies around that. So there's a few different ways you can go about this. The ultimate goal, though, is to become the CEO of your business. You don't want to be, if it's a maid's business, cleaning toilets. If you're making burgers, you don't want to be on fries. If you're if it's a sign company, you're not in the back making the signs or anything like that, or installing them. You're the CEO of the business. Yeah, you're the face of it. You might be doing some selling early on if the business requires it, whether customers walk in your front door, or if it's a painting company or something and you need to go. Part of that is sitting in the customer's home and talking to them about your business. You absolutely may do a little of that the first 6 months. You need to know what happens and what your people are doing to be able to coach them and help them grow and help them be effective at their jobs. But the reality is, over time, you want to become to that CEO role. How do you get there? Number one is the clean break, right? You go, all right, I'm all in on day one. You go through training. Maybe you keep your job, but you go through training. You get, if it's a physical location, you get the construction part done, all of that. As you're getting ready to open, at that point, you would leave your job and you just go all in on the business out of the gate. That's going to be the fastest way to grow the business, but there is going to be a period of time where you don't make any money. There's no income coming in. How do you fix that? Well, either you've got extra savings or you overfund through the SBA loan, a salary for yourself. So we can talk about what that looks like, but there are ways to do that, to manage that gap and make that happen. Um, the other option is what we call an executive model, this manage the manager kind of idea, or semi-active. Sometimes you'll hear semi-absentee or semi-passive. And those two really are just a matter of scale. So the manage the manager, where you're going to keep your job for a period of time, get it off the ground, and ultimately transition out of your job into this business, probably still managing the manager. It just takes a little bit more capital because you got to pay somebody a little higher quality than you would if you were there. And you need probably 10 to 20 hours a week, depending on the brand. They're all going to have their idea of what works. Semi-active or semi-passive gets now down to more of a 5 to 10, 5 to 7 hours a week. So the other business we've gotten involved with personally is hair salons. The beauty industry is pretty well known for having that model established. So in the hair business, you're going to have a salon manager running it, and you're involved maybe 5 hours a week. That's really more of that semi-active, semi-passive, and you could keep your job indefinitely. Carve out your 5 hours a week, maybe occasionally 10, where you're providing the vision and the company culture, probably paying the bills. I wouldn't give my manager the checkbook, but you're not really involved in the day-to-day. The manage the manager or the executive model, you're going to be a little more involved day-to-day. You're just doing that maybe off hours or around your current job so you can keep working for a period of time. So those are the trade-offs. I kind of hit on them there. I mean, it's going to take you longer to scale a business if you're working full-time at a job. If you're not in the business 40, 50 hours a week, it's probably not going to get off the ground. Nobody's ever going to be as good as you are. I've got stories around learning that in my first few years in business and getting to a place where I was comfortable letting somebody else be 80 or 90% as good as I was, so I didn't have to be there all the time. How to scale these businesses, this is going to depend a lot on the nature of it. Do you get your first one open and add second, third, fourth locations? Or is it something more like, if it's maid services or a sign company or a painting company or senior care company or something like that? Often you can do it out of a single office with never adding additional infrastructure, just expanding a little bit wider the territory that you cover. And there is some investment to that, but it's just franchise fees. It's not like you have to have a second office or anything. So we certainly talk about that in our process. What are your goals? Where do you want to be 5, 10 years from now? And let's figure out how to get you there. And that's a lot of what I do in my process before we even get to talking to a franchise. So here we are, my process. Number one, I work like an executive recruiter. There's never any cost to talk to me or work through me. I do get paid by the franchises if you find one that we work on together and you decide to go ahead with it. So first off, it's that get acquainted I mentioned before. Down on the right-hand corner, the calendar link. You can hit me up on LinkedIn at the bottom. That's my URL on LinkedIn. And of course, through that franchise guy, it's literally John, John, at that franchise guy will get you to me on email as well. And I'm going to leave you with the contact information here in a second. But set up a meeting. Let me know you're interested, and I'll even reach back to you to set it up. Let's spend 15 or 20 minutes getting acquainted, talking about that initial consultation of your goals and where you want to be and how quickly you want to get there. I'm going to give you some educational resources on franchising. I'm going to teach you a whole lot. And then we'll decide if it makes sense to move on to the next step, which is let's create your profile, and then let's match that profile to franchises that are available in your area. A lot of that happens on the back end through me and my team before we get back together, and we'll go through, like I said, anywhere from a half dozen to a dozen brands together to figure out what's the right 2 or 3 for you to focus on. And then from that point on, and I stole this from an associate of mine, comedian actually in San Diego, who, if you like the comedy clubs there, maybe you'll bump into him. Anyway, he uses the analogy of being a tour guide, and that's exactly what I am. Once you hit that franchise that you want to research, I'm there to hold your hand and coach you through the process. Make sure you're asking the right questions and getting the right answers to make an educated decision. Lastly, on here, again, on my LinkedIn page, there's dozens of testimonials from people I've worked with. If you like to check on that kind of support and recommendations. So, thank you very much. I'm honored. We're right at that 30-minute mark. I started maybe a minute late, so I'm almost there. Thank you so much. I'm honored you joined me today. If you're watching this on the recording, I'm honored that you got all the way to the end, and I do appreciate it. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you, whether it's a brief conversation or even just through LinkedIn at some point in time. Resources I have for you. Uh, if you're not ready to fully engage, no problem. Ping me, hit me up. I'll send you a PDF of my book for free. If you like to have it paper or even on Kindle, you can get it on Amazon for, I think it's $4.99. But it's a great primer on mindset and then how to find a franchise for your, that fits you. Thatfranchiseguy.com I've talked about. I did not mention YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel with dozens of videos that I've created, interviews of brands and franchisees and their stories, and there's some good stuff on there. And of course, love to set up that meeting to talk to you. My calendar link is on the QR code, or you can just give me a call anytime. They're at 918-962-0506. Rings right here on my desk. Thank you again. I hope it's been helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.